So, welcome everyone who've joined us to the students who've joined us today. We have Richard with us who works for the Seneca Works department as a career strategist and has over 12 years of experience. We are looking forward to the tools and techniques that you want to share with us today and help us through the life after college. So we could start with you giving a brief introduction about yourself and letting us know what the topic is for today, and we can take it up from there.
Absolutely. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm very happy to be here. I hope I will share some things that are useful to folks today. I do recognize, after college, it can be quite daunting as to, what's going to happen next. We're at that time, we're at a major crossroads in our lives. Where will we go? What will happen in our lives? Will we pursue our careers? Will we pursue further education? All of those things are possibilities, and there's a lot of unknowns, and I know that it can be a little bit daunting. Um, when I think back to when I was in that stage of life as well. Um, and I understand for this session today, we will be focusing on for folks who are thinking about pursuing their careers. So yeah, looking forward to today's session.
Amazing. So I would request all the students to get their notepads out, and without further ado, let's just start with our first question for today. So, Richard, tell me one thing. We are soon approaching our graduation dates. So, what is the most important thing that you would want graduating students to know?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. You know what? Whenever I think about the most important thing, it comes down to me. It's the network that we
Mm-hmm.
have, and I know people hear that so many times, but it's so true, and it has been true in my life as well. Most of the jobs that I have gotten throughout my life has been because I've known somebody through a
Mm-hmm.
personal connection. And now, there's a tendency too for people to overthink this whole idea of networking. Networking, we do that every day. It's just networking. Our network is simply the people we know, right? And
Yeah.
that goes from our family to our neighbors to people we've gone to school with, people we've worked with before. All of these people we encounter in our lives are part of our network. But what is important to think about, though, is for us to consciously add to our network and think about how the people we know can be assets in our network. Recognizing too that, you know, when we think about the people we know, there are some people who will, provide some sort of benefit to us at one point, and maybe at some other point in our lives, we're going to be the ones to provide some sort of benefit to that other person.
Mm-hmm.
So the networking is so huge, and I hope that people really understand that, how important that is. It is true. There's a statistic that says that about 80% of jobs are gotten through someone you know, and like I said, I found that to be true. Um, Future opportunities can come about through people that we know. So I highly recommend that people pay attention to that.
Absolutely. You shared a very interesting statistics of an 80% of people get a job through people they know. To further add to that point, would you share some specific tips on how to network, especially the network and use that network as an asset for job search or building that network?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, just like when we're making friends socially, it's much more easy to connect with somebody that we have something in common with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, when we're networking, I think it's a great idea to find groups of people you have something in common with them. So, right now, especially with the COVID-19 situation, we're all working remotely, or we're not going into work in person, most of us. Um, LinkedIn has it has become even more relevant because we now can connect with people without even leaving our homes. It's such a great tool, and actually, since we're talking about that, I'd like to actually just share my screen and share a tip with how I would use LinkedIn if I was a student about to graduate and possibly looking for people to network. So I'm sharing my screen now. I'm in my LinkedIn. You can actually search for Seneca College. When you search for Seneca College, you'll see that Seneca has its own page on LinkedIn. And on there's a tab for alumni. When you click on that, it will show you that there are over 170,000 alumni from Seneca on LinkedIn. Now, remember what I just said. It's a lot easier to connect with people or expand your network when you have something in common with them. My gosh, look at this. There's over 170,000 people you have something in common with. You went to Seneca, right? So, and even further down in here, you can actually, in this page here, it also is really great because it tells you what they studied. So you can drill this down even more specifically. So beyond just going to Seneca, maybe you want to find people who also studied marketing. If you click on that, that will show you all those people who are Seneca alumni who have studied marketing. And if you scroll down, you will see those people's profiles, and you can go look for friendly faces and find people to potentially connect with. This is a tool that I would be using if I was going to be graduating from college and looking to connect with people. I can find people who are in my class, in my current year. I can find people who have graduated before. And in terms of how to approach them, I would approach them by doing something like saying something, hi, I see that you also went to Seneca, or I see that you also went to the marketing program at Seneca. Do you mind if we connect, and do you mind if I ask you some questions? Nice little introduction. You're saying exactly why you want to connect. And it's about expanding your network because you work in the same field and you might like to share some information, right? So that would be my approach. And as well, when I'm networking, I want people to remember something else too, is that if somebody asked you, imagine you're working in a company and your manager came and asked you, hey, we need to hire somebody. Do you know anybody you can recommend? What are the things that would need to be true for you to recommend someone? I know for me, two things would have to be true. Number one, I'd have to be confident the person is good at what they do, right? Because if I'm going to recommend somebody, it's my reputation too. I want to make sure that they're a good person and they're good at what they do. Number two is if they could potentially be working with me in my company, in my department, they need to be a fairly pleasant person to have around.
Correct.
So if I could know somebody who's really good at what they do, but their personality is a dud, they're not any fun to be around. But if I know somebody who's good at what they do and they're nice to have around, that's somebody who I'd be happy to recommend, right? So what does that tell me when I'm networking with people? Well, I want to make sure that I present myself who is knowledgeable about my field and I'm somebody who's a nice person to have around. So throughout all my interactions with my network, I want people to remember those two things. You're trying to portray to people that you're good at what you do, and you do that by talking about things about your field. So if you're connecting with people that are in your same field, say it's marketing, oh, do you use this tool for analysis? Do you use this platform? Do you do social media? And all these kinds of things, right? So you're showing people that you are familiar with the concepts in your field, and that helps people understand that, hey, this person knows what they're talking about. They're talking about relevant things in the field right now. And all throughout, being friendly and polite it helps for people get the impression that you're a nice person to have around. So those are some key tips with networking, as well as, it's not just a matter of how many people are in your connection group on LinkedIn. You could have 800 people in your connection list, but if you don't know any of them or you have never actually spoken to them, it's not a valuable connection list, right? So it's very important as well to build those connections and also maintain them, right? So the fact that you met somebody at a conference 3 years ago, well, when was the last time you checked in and said, hey, how you doing? How are things with you? Or happy summer. How has your summer been? You find an excuse to stay in touch with people. It's because if you're out of sight, you're out of mind, right? So because you want to be in a situation where if somebody says if their manager says to them, hey, we need to hire somebody, can you think of anybody you can recommend? You want them to think of you. And if you haven't been in touch with them for a long time, you won't be top of mind. So it's a good idea to really keep in touch with people so that you are on top of mind. And on that note, final thing about tips for networking is it's a good idea to set goals, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I currently have 3 people in my network, maybe my goal is I want to make it 6 people by next week. Once it's 6, maybe the next goal is to make it 10 people by the following week after that, right? So that way you're conscientiously building your network and you're setting goals for
Correct.
yourself so that you can have something to strive towards. Um, and that kind of sort of can help keep you going with your networking efforts.
Absolutely. I think you shared a very interesting point here on how to network, but also how to break the ice. Like sending the invite is very easy and getting accepted is very easy, but the first message that you actually shared a few lines on how to curate that message, I think that is one of the biggest takeaway from this question or this point.
Oh, on that note, can I just say, please always send a personal note when you're sending a connection request. People get
Mhm.
very busy, and a lot of people get random connection requests, and without a personal message as to why someone wants to connect with you, chances are
Mhm.
the person won't reply to you or won't accept your connection request. I'm a big advocate for strategic networking, and to be strategic, there has to be a reason why 2 people are connecting with each other. So for the other person to understand why they should accept your connection request, you
Mhm.
must send a personal note as to why you want to connect with them. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So taking a shift from networking to now actually going into the job search part. So what would you suggest? What are some of the good sites to look for a job for us students?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said before, 80% of jobs are gotten through someone you know, but there is a percentage of jobs that are gotten through applications online. So actually, there are, I would say, maybe my top sites that I would recommend to people. Actually, maybe what I'll do is just post those into the chat. Let me chat here. Um,
I posted it for you, Richard.
oh, you got them already? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Um, so yeah, first and foremost, I just want people to make sure that you know about the Seneca Works career portal. When employers come to us and say, "Hey, we want to hire a student," we tell them to post the jobs on there, right? So that employers want to hire specifically Seneca students. That's such a great thing. We love to hear that, and that happens for a couple reasons. Sometimes it could be somebody who went to Seneca, now they're working in the field, and now they're in the position to hire people, and because they recognize the quality of their own education, they want to hire people with the same qualifications, right? So
Correct.
that happens, and sometimes those people will only post on Seneca Works because they definitely want Seneca students. We love to see that. We love to hear that, and sometimes that does happen. Um, or maybe people in the industry just actually understand the value of the education that you're getting at Seneca, and so that because they recognize the level of the training that you're getting here, they want to post with Seneca. So there are a variety of different reasons why people will post there. Um, however, it is not the biggest job search portal, though, right? Recognizing that,
Correct.
so we can't compare in terms of the sheer volume of postings on Indeed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but because there's a strong interest for people to hire Seneca students, I highly recommend that you check there once in a while. Um, another thing too is that you're less likely to see postings on there that will ask for 5 years plus of experience, right? Because they recognize they're advertising the job at a college website where most of the candidates are going to be fresh out of school with little to no work experience in the field as yet, right? So that's also a good thing to recognize when you're looking at the jobs on Seneca Works. Indeed, like I said, just mentioned, it is the largest website we have for job postings, so definitely want to check that out. LinkedIn, not only is it for us to have our own profiles, but as you know, they do have job postings on there as well. Um, Eluda, I actually would like to actually just show that one too. Just go to eluda.ca. And one of the things I like about Eluda is that if you go into here, you can there's a link for top employers,
Mm-hmm.
and they have these here. Say, hey, like they have Canada's top employers for young people, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
which is basically saying that these employers appreciate the fact that people are starting out in the career that may not have a whole lot of experience, but they may have training programs to help people get up to speed. They appreciate people who are freshly trained, can come with fresh ideas, fresh energy. So if you wanted to get a list of companies that appreciate, have that sort of inclination, or are known for having that sort of inclination, this is how you can find out those types of companies. And as well, say you're interested in working with companies that appreciate diversity. Similarly, there's a list for that as well. So Eluda is really neat for these kinds of lists. So yeah, I like it for that. And on that list as well is the WeWorkRemotely.com, which got very popular because of COVID. Employers did recognize that if they have a job that's available that can be done completely remotely,
Mm-hmm.
that that's part of why this website got quite popular. There's always been remote jobs, but even more so certainly because of COVID. So it's another site to consider looking at if you're in a field that lends itself to working completely remotely.
Remote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing some of the sites and taking us through those websites. I think these two definitely I was not aware about, and thank you for sharing those. Now taking a step from actually searching a job to now knowing how to do it. So how can students know which jobs they can apply for?
Yeah, so that's a good question too. And so I want to share a place that I think is a logical place to start. So if you go onto Seneca's website, as you know, you can see all the different programs and you can find your program page, which you may have already seen when you were looking at the potential jobs that you might want to apply to. But it's just want to revisit this because sometimes people forget about what these pages include. So suppose I'm in accounting and finance. Not only is there a description about the program, but they'll show you here a list of um, types of jobs that you could be applying for after this training, after this program. So in terms of the job titles, here are some of the ones that you can start with, right? And what I suggest is you can also go through some other areas for further research on jobs. So Canada has a job classification. They call it the NOC, National Occupation Classification. So you can come in here and search for job titles, right? So say, for instance, I can come over here. Say, for instance, I wanted to start with accountant. I'd do a search for that, and it will give me a synopsis of, well, it'll give me a list of related occupations. And say I look at the financial auditors and accountants, and it gives me what the NOC code is, and it will give me a list of sample job titles, and they may or may not be the same ones that are on the Seneca page. It'll give me an idea of the main duties that people will do in that role, in that job. Employment requirements, so what people will look for as qualifications typically. So this is a way to sort of get some more information about the field of work that you're in and the type of job and job titles that you could possibly be applying for. Another thing that I suggest you have a look at is the Ontario Job Futures site. So if we go to that, actually, let me post that website here, and I'll just also post the link for the one that we just looked at as well for the NOC. I'll post that into the chat as well. So, oh, Samir, thank you for posting those in. Yeah, so on the Ontario site here, there's a section for job profiles. And also, if you recall, we looked at so in here you can actually put the job title in here, or if you remember the not code, you can actually put that in there as well. So if you do put that in there, do a search, here it'll come up with the link for further information. And on here, there's a lot of information to check out, and there's an overview about the job. They'll have related occupations again, so alternate titles for that position, or positions that are related but slightly different. There's a job outlook. That's important to also pay attention to. Median income. A lot of really good information on here for you to check out about the jobs that you're contemplating and pursuing. So these are two places where I highly recommend you check out further information. And beyond that, when you're doing these searches for the jobs that you'll apply for, say you go on Indeed, and for the more junior type of roles, here are ways that you can look for those when you put them in the search field. So say you are in accounting. You can search for accounting assistant, you can search for accounting clerk, accounting associate, or junior accountant. If you put those types of words into the search field, you're more likely to come across more entry-level type of jobs that are more suitable for your level if you're just starting out in your career and just coming out of school. So those are some tips. Oh, another thing too is, as posted here in the chat, sometimes, oftentimes actually, I'll speak to people and they'll tell me about jobs that they're looking at, but they don't apply because they don't have everything that that's on the job posting. And I highly recommend that you apply for any job that you see, even if you don't have all the qualifications. So my rule of thumb is if I see a job posting and I have about 60% or more of what they're looking for, I'm going to apply, right? So even if they say something like, preferably somebody with 3 years of experience, if they say preferably, then I'm still going to apply. The way that I look at it is, I'll apply, I'll let them be the ones to decide if they want to give me a chance or not. I don't want to be my own limiting factor, right? So, and in my role, I many times have come across people, I've been helping them with their interviews to prepare for their interview. And they'll say to me something like, Richard, I'm really surprised they called me. I don't have all the qualifications they're looking for. That happens a lot, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so basically what has happened is something about the person's application, something they said in their resume, something they said in their cover letter, makes the recruiter want to give that person a try, right? So again, if you didn't submit your resume, you don't have that option. So again, even if you don't have all the qualifications or years of experience that they're asking for, apply. The only time I won't is when they're very specific in their wording. Like if they say it is mandatory to have a master's degree for this position. Okay, fine. I don't have a master's degree. I guess I won't apply to that because they said it's mandatory or must have XYZ. If they use that sort of terminology and I don't have it, then okay, fine. I won't apply to those. But outside of that, I will apply. It doesn't cost me anything, right? It just costs me a little bit of time and effort. So it's not like applying for it and not being qualified for it is going to hurt me in the future. They'll simply just not call me, right? So, and that's fine. So please apply to any job that you think you're qualified for.
Good. I think you brought up a very good point because myself, even I struggle to go through the job description and think about, if I have the qualifications, and sometimes it's like, okay, 2 to 3 years of experience, and it's I get pleasantly surprised when I actually apply for a job and then they give me a call even when I don't have that kind of experience. So
Absolutely.
definitely this is
Yeah,
I'm going to use that.
case in point, right? It happens. For some reason, hiring managers will find a reason to want to give people a try. What it is too. Like when someone is writing a job description, it's their wish list. It's everything they want in the most ideal candidate. But this is real life. We don't always get exactly what we want. So yeah, so it just supports our recommendation to just apply to any jobs you think you're interested in.
Absolutely. Now that you've spoken about, like, you've shared some resources and you've taken us through which jobs to apply. Now, getting into the process of it, how if you could just tell us about the process and how should we strategically have a process or a outline while making that job search a success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we've talked a lot about job search, and there are a lot of things to think about. So, first and foremost, what I recommend is people work on what I call the job search toolkit, right? So, what do we need to have in place in order to do a good job search? So that includes having a strong resume, a good cover letter, being prepared for interviews, because as soon as you start putting out your resume out there into the world, somebody might invite you for an interview the very next day, right? So it could happen very quickly if they urgently need to hire. If the interview goes well, that's when they're likely to ask for your references. So we should be prepared to supply 3 references, right? And that's usually done on a separate document. You can have the same header as your resume and put a title references, and then you list your 3 references with a name, phone number, and email address. The other thing that I would say that should be in your job search toolkit is your LinkedIn profile. Employers do go on LinkedIn to find people to hire. So if that's the case, if I'm a job seeker, I need to make sure I have a good presence on LinkedIn. So making sure that you have a good LinkedIn profile is also very important, because who knows, sometimes what if the opportunity comes to you? And I myself and people that I have known have gotten employers contact them on LinkedIn. So if that's happening, you got to make sure that you're on there so that you can get those opportunities too. And then so once you have these things in your toolkit ready, then it's a matter about finding the opportunity. And that's done through the combination of strategic networking and applying for jobs online. And another thing that I end up speaking to a lot of people about is, hey, I've applied to, 6 jobs, but I haven't gotten anything yet. And just in terms of what to expect, a lot of times with a good, strong effort and solid resume, interview skills, and all these things in place, even for many times, and there are exceptions obviously, but most people will be job searching for about 3 to 6 months. Okay, so can somebody get a job within 2 weeks? Yes, absolutely, and it has happened. But for a lot of us, it does take quite a bit of effort and quite a little bit of time to end up finding a work, and it's partly just a function of being in a large city like Toronto, where the job market is just highly competitive, right? So you can expect to, spend some time, few months cultivating your network, accessing people that you know, and checking in with them to see if they have any tips or leads for you, applying to jobs online. Sometimes I hear people talking about applying to 50 to 100 jobs, 150 jobs until they end up securing a job. So I'm going to say that 6 jobs is 6 applications is probably not enough, right? So just be aware of the expectation, just be aware of what you're up to when you're job searching. It can take quite a while, right? So, um, but if you're doing these things that we've kind of outlined in this discussion today, you'll know that you're doing all the right things in your job search process, in your strategy. And if you do need to do a checkup, that's what my department is here for. You can make appointments with people like myself. There are 5 other career strategists that we all can help you with, make sure that you're doing the right things for your job search. So that these are all things to consider. Oh, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
one
Go
other,
ahead.
one other
Go ahead.
thing is in thinking about all these things, it's good to kind of understand what needs to be done. But I highly recommend to people, create a weekly schedule for yourself. So if you are serious about job searching, have it set that Mondays 10 to 2, you're on LinkedIn trying to connect with more and more people. And then on Tuesdays 10 to 2, it's about connecting with people you already know and checking with them. And on Wednesdays is your online job application day. That's when you're going to spend some time looking at applying for jobs that are posted online, and so on and so forth. So having a schedule can really help to keep on track.
Thank you so much for sharing all the resources and the processes. I think all our students have a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but we just don't know how to go about that process in a strategic way. We just randomly start doing job applications and easy apply our best friends on LinkedIn. But yeah, I think coming to closing this session, do you have any final tips or suggestions for the students we have today?
Well, yeah, I could talk all day about this, but uh, one other thing that I kind of stems from the idea of creating a weekly schedule for yourself is, you know, the importance of self-management. As a student from we're very young up until this point, we're in classes. We know what the procedure is. We attend classes, we get assignments, we get homework. We know that we need to do those things. When it comes to a job search, there's no one telling us what we need to be doing, right? And there's no due date. So making sure that we have the discipline and self-management, attitude to make sure that we stay on top of what we're supposed to be doing is important, right? Because nobody is checking with you. Well, maybe you have parents that are doing this. Like, how many jobs do you apply to today? But not most of us don't have that sort of scenario happening. So, um, you know, just being able to manage our own time and our efforts is important. Um, um, there are a couple of things I'd like to share. So on LinkedIn, um, there is a group for our department. So it's called the Seneca Works group in LinkedIn. Please feel free to join us. Uh, on here, we'll post any sort of special events. If we have any guest speakers that are coming on, if we're announcing our career fairs or special employers that are coming to do special sessions, those things will be posted on here. So I highly recommend that you join us for that group on there to stay in touch. I will share the link for my department. This is the Seneca Works department. You can feel free to go on there and find out information as well about tips about job searching. There's our workshop calendar if you want to see what other workshops we're doing, or sometimes we'll have special events. Those will be posted on here as well. So another way to stay in touch. And I mentioned that you have the ability to make appointments with us. By the way, you have access to support from our department up to 2 years after graduation. So on that same site there, if you go to the main link, there is a link here for Seneca Works career portal, and this is where you can log in with your Seneca username and password, book appointments to see a career strategist, and it could be about making sure that you have a strong resume. It could be about preparing for an interview. It could be anything about your job search strategy in general, or your LinkedIn profile, or career decisions that you have to make. All of those things are available to you up to 2 years after you graduate. And then one final thing. I'm aware of the time, but just one final site too that I want to share with you is this one. Aside from keeping in touch with us in the Seneca Works department, also I encourage you to connect with Seneca's alumni. That's how you can that link there. You can register with them so that any updates they'll have, you'll be notified. Sometimes they have guest speakers as well. They'll have people from different industries come and do talks. Great way to network with other people too. So I highly recommend that you plug into that as well.
Absolutely. I think 2 years of, this resources and these career strategists, I think that's a very, very good way of us keeping in touch with the college as well as seeking advice from them. We have one question in the chat. Could you please talk more about the optionary graduates fare financially once they are out of college? What scope is for them in Ontario?
So I'm not sure if I catch the gist of that question. What is that about?
It's in the chat window. Samir
Okay,
has just.
I just shared the question with you, Richard.
okay. opticianry. Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't hear that word. Um, Graduates once they are out of college. Oh, opticianry has one of the highest employment rates out of all the Seneca programs. So, in terms of supply and demand, my understanding is there's always a demand for the opticianry students. Um, so, in terms of your prospects, they're very good. Um,
Any other
yeah,
questions to? Okay, we have one more question.
sure.
How to connect again with old references since it's so obvious that we are trying to reach out for a benefit and it's not the easiest to do. For example, professors, placement supervisors. I think that's a very good question.
Yeah, such a good question. So certainly we want to avoid that scenario as much as we can. My previous manager that managed me 10 years ago, every year I still contact him to say, hey, how you doing? I know that he used to have photography as a hobby, so I'll ask him, hey, so how's the photography going, right? Any sort of reason to stay in touch. And nowadays, there's so many reasons, right? It could be, oh, happy Father's Day. It could be, oh, hope you're enjoying the summer. How's your summer been going? Whatever, right? Um, but yeah, if it has been a while since you've connected with somebody, just find some reason to try to connect with them. And it may be because you know that they have kids, and you say, oh, it's been a few years now. Your kids must be quite grown up. How are you and your family? Whatever it is, if it's somebody that you know on that level, or if it's somebody you know professionally, oh yeah, it's been a while since we both worked at this place. How are you doing? What's up? What's new with you? Any reason to sort of open up that conversation again. And if you have, again, that idea where it's easy to connect with people you have something in common with, try to find some topic or some item that by bringing that up will help them to remember who you are, right? So if you and somebody else volunteered at this organization before and it's been 4 years, oh yeah, it's been a while since we both volunteered at XYZ place. How are things with you? Right? So find any excuse to start up the conversation again, right? And um, if they're hopefully they're willing to reciprocate and carry on the conversation, right? I don't think there's any magic bullet here. You just need to just reach out um, and just start the conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's all about us overthinking everything that we do,
Yeah,
as students. Like even I do that. Like I keep reminding myself that to let go and it's just our professor or a person that
yeah.
I know.
And,
So
and
yeah.
on that note, I know that a big hang up for people is that, yes, it is very obvious that I'm trying to network and connect with people for my benefit. And
Mhm.
my suggestion is to let go of that, right?
Yeah.
Um, the thing about it is everyone understands the value of a network, right? So when someone um, approaches you, I mean, when the tables are turned, you're going to understand why people are connecting with you. Because, fast forward
Mhm.
3 years from now, you all might be working in whatever industry you're in. And then you might have Seneca students who are currently in the program connecting with you. You're going to understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to connect with you, make connections, um, share information. Now, it is true. There's a strong likelihood because they're more well into their field that they may be the one giving you advice and tips and possibly leads. But look, fast forward 3 years from now, maybe you're the one who's going to be employed, or maybe they're the ones going to be in between contracts or in between
Mhm.
jobs, and they may come to you and say, "Hey, how are things with you? Where are you now? Where are you working?" And maybe at that time you can give them advice and maybe tips or leads, right? So yes, maybe right now you're the one asking for a favor or looking for a favor, but maybe later on down the line the tables will be turned and it will be the opposite way around. It's happened to me before, right? And that's the beauty of a network. It's not always that
Mhm.
you're always going to be the one asking. Look, you might have 6 people in your network now, but 6 months from now it could be 50. A few months from that it could be 100, right? Somebody who knows 100 people working in the field might be a really valuable person in your network, right? Because you
Mhm.
know a lot of people. Some now all of a sudden you might become the person that the people want to know. Say, hey, Richard, do you know somebody who's good at, C+ programming?
Mm-hmm,
Hey, you know
mm-hmm.
what? Actually, I do know somebody. And by virtue of having such an expanded network, that might be the reason why people want to connect with you. So um, don't undersell yourself in your ability to possibly be a valuable person in someone else's network.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I'm just going to give one quick minute for our students if they have any questions, because I know these are tough times. So we're going to make use of this time. Uh, any questions? Okay, I don't see anyone typing. Okay, so for students who would like to, go back and look at this webinar again and, see all the links and the explanation, the tips that Richard gave, we are going to be uploading this on the website as well as SSF's Instagram page. So please feel free to make use of this as well as share it with your friends. I would like to take a moment to thank you, Richard, for all the resources that you shared as well as the tips and techniques you gave. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here. Okay, I
Thank you
guess,
so much. Yeah.
yeah, all right. Well, with that, thank you everyone who joined. And I think it was a really great session. A lot of great information was brought up today. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.